Welcome back to the Rhetoric Warriors podcast. We are teaching 100 million Americans to persuade, counter persuade, de-persuade. There's a lot of confusion out there. I don't know if you've noticed. And maybe clean it up a little bit. I'm Dr. Dan, rhetoric PhD, escaped professor. They left one of the windows open. I'm like, you know what? That looks better out there. I also comedy writer from Late Night in Hollywood, and I bring those things together as much as I can. Here on the podcast, I talk to comedians. I talk to interesting people. I talk to the right. I convert them here live on the podcast so that you can see how that's done because they worry me, the rightists. And I talk to persuasion professionals and rhetoricians. So drag all sorts of cool people on here. I would put my guest tonight in that category. It's a really interesting kind of moment since it's been probably 20 years since we've talked. It's got to be.
I would say probably 2006 or 7, so just shy. Maybe more like 15 years would be my guess.
Okay, yeah, I've moved back. Yeah, so I was thinking before 99 because I've moved back and forth from Austin like 9 times. So my guest tonight, that's our history. We'll talk about that a little bit. I knew him as a beginning comic at the old Laugh Stop in Austin, Texas. He's gone on to do lots. He longtime stand-up, runs podcasts, creates comics, does animated films, all from a perspective that I remember back then thinking, oh, this guy has an interesting perspective. And it looks like he's run that game for quite a while. Has a new hour coming out on 9/24, Big Nothingness. David Huntsberger.
Thank you, Doctor. Do you go by Dr. Rhetoric on the show? You go by Dan? What should I call you?
I don't like to impose my restrictions on the guests, so you can call me whatever you want.
Okay. Well, I'll call you Dan if that's okay. Thinking back to our time together, and I'm curious I remember my first memory of you arriving in town, or I guess back in town. I didn't know that you had been there and then come back, but I'm curious what your first. I remember, the Austin scene. The reason I love it, and there's a great Andy Ritchie's quote of Austin, where dreams go to be dreamt. And you just feel like everyone goes there with this kind of pie in the sky idea, but really no great work ethic. And then it's almost frowned upon. If you see someone hustling, you're like, what's your story? Cut it out. If you went into someone's apartment and they had a vision board or something, you're like, you're in the wrong place. This is, but then on the other side of that, I felt like what came out on stage was everyone had a very singularly unique kind of style or voice, or, obviously there are things within any scene that kind of blend together, maybe gestures or motions or patterns of speech, but overall the approach I loved in Austin because it felt so artistic, and it made sense that no one was really successful because it's too artsy. It doesn't always connect to a crowd.
Those are all wonderfully spoken, generous views of the Austin community.
Maybe it's, I don't know.
I completely agree. That artistic, the auteur, the not ruined by professional. Nobody's paying me, so I totally like that energy, and I encourage it. Go forth, be yourselves. I would say that Austin, I think, has suffered from its lack of professional layer.
Yeah.
Like that, what you're talking about, the unambitiousness. And it kind of makes sense. What are they going to do? They got to move somewhere else anyway.
The number of times that, every big festival sent representatives to come essentially scout Austin. Oh, it's a great scene, good comics. And people would go. But, as soon as you start to sniff that, that's kind of bullshit. I got to pay my way there. I got to buy my own flight and so I can do 6 minutes. I'm not doing that. And, other places, the comedians were like, I made it. This is my big thing. And the money they would spend would be no object. Whereas in Austin, and it's funny that doing this show, when you and I are just chatting for 2 minutes, you mentioned painting and you're like, I just do it for myself. I don't, there's too many rules, and I feel like that perfectly encapsulates that feeling. Once there are rules, then it doesn't feel as artsy anymore. It feels like paint by numbers. And so I felt like Austin people could always kind of smell that out and be like, yeah, you're telling me this is a good opportunity for me, but I don't believe you. It seems like hey, you can do this late night set, but you got to change your whole set.
I
No.
think you were kind of in one of the heydays of Austin that the community goes in and out. And I've lived here off and on since 1987. So I started doing stand up here in 94, I think. And I've moved away and I've never really been integrated with this community. I am way too professionalized for most of the people here. They looked at me like when I arrived here and I was like, what are you guys trying to do? You know, like, how are you trying to make money? They're like, what? And so I've never really jived with this community, but I've seen it go through positives. Like I think was Eddie Gosling still here when you were here?
No, but he was the guy we really revered. We looked at, so when he came to town, it was there would be a pocket full of people that would at least watch one show, and some people that would watch every set because he was so fluid. Yeah, he's just so natural, and every show was different. And then he could lean on his bits, but then he'd also just goof around and just be dominating. I never use that word.
We had guys like that, and he came from San Antonio, I think, originally, and then Jimmy Roulette was just amazing. There's some real talent here, and I always was like, I just wanted to yank those people out and go, come on, let's go make some money with you. But yeah,
Jimmy is so frustrating to me because he's one of those guys that was like just a pure artist. But then the flip side of that is like he would never say that. The way he conducted himself was like, oh man, this guy won't play the game. And so when agents or whoever would be like, come out to LA or do a pitch document, or he's like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm going to do the road until the word gets out. And now that's such an uphill battle. And yet anyone who saw him, like, he's the best. Everyone should know who Jimmy Roulette is.
Oh,
and
he's
so funny.
Literally one of my favorite comics I've ever seen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something about him is just sharp and super affable. He's like Brian Regan with more energy or something. He's just so likable and
different, unique. Does his own thing, which is very.
Now he's a prison guard.
I know. I can't get over that.
Funniest prison guard in America.
Ugh. But hopefully he's happy. And
all right, so you remembered me showing up. Tell me what that means.
I remember that this is the way Austin comedians would perk up. The idea that like if one of those scouts or someone from a festival or something like that was there, suddenly they're all like, clamoring around or congregating near that person, or just like, oh, this is gonna be it's not like they weren't ambitious. Their tactics to me were always funny in that, like, I'm just this person's tactics, here, I'm just gonna go have a bunch of drinks with them. And I remember when whoever was bringing you up, and I think it was just like the Mishmash or the open mic, it was like, oh, he wrote for, I think it was Dennis Miller or at one of the late night shows, and you could see all the comics be like, huh. Like, so when you got off stage, there was just this slow glacial kind of people making their way over a little bit just to see if you could, like, hey, can you get my tape to someone? Or so there was ambition, but it was to me in such a weird way of like, I don't know, I thought it was gross.
You've been in Hollywood for a long time. The difference in Hollywood ambition, Hollywood level ambition, and the work ethic, the OCD obsessive coming from a place of pain work ethic that most people will bring to that. And then the Austin, and I had a lot of those guys, they would come up to me because I always offered to help. I love talented people. I love to try to help where I can. And they would come up to me and they'd be like, hey man, how do I get a writing packet or to this show? And I'm like, well, first you get a writing packet. And so let's, just send it to me and I'll check it out. And they would send it to me. And I'm like, 2 of these jokes are good starter jokes.
Yeah.
Keep working on it. And they'd be like, no, man, this is like my stuff. Yeah, that's not going to do it. You're not going to get a job with that. And they wouldn't believe me, and they would find a way to send it in, and they would not get jobs.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
All right, let me yank it out of the Austin scene because I'm curious about you. So what I remember about you is you worked at the Laugh Stop and you did a ton of guest spots, and then you left it in your car.
I like immersed myself completely in comedy. I ran food at night during the shows, and then I'd hang out and watch the shows, and I'd do a lot of guest sets if someone fell through or they didn't have one, or sometimes the middle act would know me and they'd be like, oh, you should do a guest set. And I'd go up in my work gear, and then I'd show up in the morning and answer the phones. And then through that, the radio station started having me come in from time to time. And one of the days I went in, the main guy wasn't there, and he did the majority of talking. So Dudley and Bob, it was just Bob. And Bob was like, hey man, if you have something you want to talk about. And that was bizarre to me. I was like, what? And I needed a car. And I said, and I had a run of shows starting in Las Vegas in like 2 weeks. And so he goes, yeah, we'll talk about a car. And this woman called in from a dealership, and she ended up not finding me a car. I found this one on Craigslist. She goes, that is a good deal. Get it, bring it in, and we'll do like 100-point check. And, give me those tickets to the comedy club. So I give her tickets to the club, and the car immediately after I leave there, like blows up. And so a guy I worked with in the office at the comedy club was helping me push it across the street. And he goes, wow, she pushes like a dream. And like, there's just so many of those great little things in life that you just remember, this one little quip or something that was so funny.
That's a good line.
Oh, so great. Line. We're just sweating profusely. He's being such a sweetheart to help me move this car that I was like, I got such a great deal. The radio hooked me up. We had all gone in the night before to get in it. I was going to take everyone to like a diner. So 6 of us pilot, like the max amount, all squished in there. And I go, it won't start. All right, let's walk. And we start to get out, and my friend in the back goes, this door doesn't work. And so and then the next day my friend helping me push it, and I finally got it fixed. But now the gig is like 1 day away. So I drove all night in this car, got there, and basically like went on stage. And that's how I left. I just started doing shows.
And you had a college degree, right? You have a technical college degree. What is it? Engineering degree?
Yeah, I have a civil engineering degree. It's been I would say it's been a terrible sequence of decisions, but looking into engineering or seeing some of my friends that did go into it, I don't regret it. It was so boring to me. And then in a weird way, like, you're at an age where philosophically you're like, do I really want to help humanity sprawl across this planet? I felt like laughter is like the only resource I felt comfortable in trading in. You're trying to make people happy.
Do you have like a higher tolerance? Because I was a mechanical engineer for 2 weeks in college.
I'm stubborn.
I was like, I'm out. No, too hard.
Yeah, I definitely did poorly on some tests in a way where it was like, well, the the drop date is at this point, and it was however far away, and it was always just me and like a steely gunfighter stare at that date of like, well, one of us is going to blink. I'm either going to get an F or I'm going to figure out a way to squirrel through this class. And normally I would just kind of do just enough to get through it. And, I got decent grades in other classes, but the ones that I struggled in, I just would be like, yeah, I'm fine if I don't care what my grade is, as long as I don't have to take it again.
Yeah, no, that's a good policy. Good policy in life.
I think so. And the important thing is there's like this thing.
That's how I was in my marriage. Like, I mean, as long as I don't have to take this again, I'll struggle through to the end.
Yeah, it's not healthy to maintain long term, but I think for knowing there's an end point for me, and I passed the test that like qualified me to be an engineer, and I was like, well, that's all that matters. Your GPA doesn't matter. I passed that thing. So, and then I was like, I had an internship and I was doing AutoCAD. And I asked them, like, what would I do if you guys hired me? And they're like, oh, we probably will hire you, and you'll just be doing that for a couple of years. And I was like, absolutely not.
I had the same experience after I finished my master's degree at UT. I went back and taught for a while, and I got offered, I was doing freelance writing for ad agencies, and some of it was tech writing and whatever. And this ad agency offered me a job. And I was talking to the guy who owned the agency. He's like, I'm like, what's this? What would I do? What would I be doing? He's like, we see that room over there. That's the writer's room. You're going to be in there by yourself writing all day. I'm like, you're a real good salesman, man. You really, that sounds awesome. I'm not doing that.
No. Yeah. It's nice when you have those moments in life of that kind of clarity where you just sort of know, like, because I think some people, maybe they go to work for their uncle's business where they're getting a company car and some perks, and slowly they just submerge themselves into that world where like 15 years later they freak out. Wait, I didn't even know what I wanted to do, but I don't think this was it.
I have a strong revulsion mechanism. Like I know instantly. I'm like, no, this isn't. No, you are not going to do, and this is not. Yeah, and I'm like, no harm, no foul, but I'm out.
I had a friend in college, and yeah, this, you could look at this and say, well, that's like extreme privilege. However, it's a college town and jobs are just so transient. And he would work, he had a good work ethic until he didn't like it. And so he had a closet with probably 3 or 4 pizza delivery uniforms in them because he would just quit and not even call to quit. He just stopped showing up. And one day we were playing video games and I'm like, oh man, don't you have a shift in like 20 minutes? He goes, nah, I just quit. And I was like, when? He's like, just now. And we just kept playing. And I just loved, there was something so freeing to me about,
Yeah.
he wasn't worried about getting yelled at. He wasn't worried about someone saying, this could come back on you. He was just like, yeah, I just made up my mind. I just quit.
Well, cool. So you're launched, you're in your car. I watched, that was about the time when stand-up stopped being, a really viable form of employment. And, then the club started to close, more and more comedians flowed into it and people started living in their cars. And you were I was watching you go out going, I wonder how that's going to feel. I wonder how that's going to work.
Yeah, I had all the things you needed. I mean, looking back, so lucky that I worked at the club and I knew people that came through there, and a lot of the comedians would, vouch for me, or I'd get calls out of the blue. Hey, I put in a word for you to middle here, so call this person. And I was really booked out ahead of myself. I'd work 35, 40-ish weeks a year, some headlining, but mostly middling. And Nick Swardson emailed me out of the blue. And so I was working with him, and he was like at a peak of like grandma's boy, rabid fans. And so stepping out on some of those stages was just wild. And yet like climbing in my car and driving to the next town where I'd be at like a one-nighter in Shreveport the next night.
Sure.
It's just so fun in comedy. Like you realize that, for me at least, people that have been in it forever, there's not a crazy ego because it is all that. It's all across.
You cannot carry ego through those bottom trough clubs. Like you can't walk in with any sense of empowerment or entitlement. Like you're starting at less than zero again tonight.
Yeah.
There we go.
100%. And there was a guy, this was Beaumont, but I was doing a one-nighter and I was middling for a guy who had like a little bit of a Texas following. And we are at like a roughneck hill country, used to be a church. It's just a big square box, and they have picnic tables and you can bring in your own booze.
Yeah.
And there's a little stage, and trucks are parked outside just wherever. Just there's no spots. It's just jigsawed in there, trucks everywhere. And this guy puts on this music and turns down the lights and hangs out outside of a swinging, screechy screen door to come in for his big and now please welcome. And then you hear the door, and then he comes in. And I just remember thinking, like, there's no place for that in comedy. That's so stupid. But he was insulated in his own world where he was a big star. And and then this probably ties into the Austin scene, like we were just talking about a bit, and the flood of comics. To me, it was 2008 and the recession, and everyone that had vision boards and a clear vision of what they were going to do with their real career was kind of forced into doing their dream career. So, but they attacked it with the same fervor. They're like, okay, I got a list of contacts. I'm emailing 10,000 people. How are your jokes? Who cares? I'm a comedian now. And they just, it was just flooded with
the marketer comedian.
Yeah.
The business guy comedian. It's always like, you are usurping. You're an invasive species in this.
Yeah.
World.
That's a good way to put it. A little bit about me comedians. They just thought like, get on stage, just, okay, so a little bit about me, just like a business seminar. So that, like all the gas money gigs were shutting down, and I just sort of squirreled into LA after that because I couldn't stay living on the road. They just, like you said, like so many clubs closed down. It was really tough then. And so why not move to a giant expensive city?
Yeah. I think it's funny that a lot of comedians now, they're living on the nostalgic vision of club stand-up, the ones who've never done it.
Yeah.
Like they come in, they're like, literally will say to me, or I hear them talking about, I want to get a career. I want to do the clubs. I'm like, you're never going to do the clubs. Like, that's not the way it works anymore.
Yeah.
Like you cannot even like get 40 weeks as an opener and then make the relationships and kind of jiggle your way up the ladder. I don't see it as a possibility anymore.
No, not even. And in fact, I was in, a little run of shows with a friend of mine few years ago, 2 years ago or something. I've lost all track because of the pandemic, but we're in a green room and the sound guy comes in and he goes, "Hey, do you guys, how many sound cues do you guys have?" And we kind of look at each other like, "None." He goes, "What?" And I go, is that normal?" He goes, "I honestly don't know. We've had YouTubers here all week. And so we have just nonstop sound cues." And he was like, "Oh, this is so nice to just, I just have to play the," he goes, "Do you want me to play music between?" No, that's good. He was just like, this weight lifted off him. So yeah, the club scene has changed so much. And honestly, you could see that before the recession where Cap City, or the Laugh Stop as it was back before, was booking acts on off nights, like male cabaret type stuff, to keep paying the rent, to pay
Sure.
their lease. And you'd be like, "Oh, so this is just a venue. This isn't this vaunted hallway of all these headshots, and you come in here, you can smell Bill Hicks and all this." It wasn't that. It's more like, "Yeah, we will host your bachelorette party. Just pay us. We are just a for hire venue."
Yeah, again, stand-up is just a crazy entertainment pinata with everything in it. And it's the least professionalized form of entertainment. Anybody can get in there. There's
Yeah.
no bar. There's no, like in acting, you have to get other people together, stand up now, just weasel your way onto stage somehow. And look at that. You're a stand-up comic.
Yeah, it's a weird ecosystem, undoubtedly. However,
So-
like when you're around it, it's definitely more fun than engineering. No offense to engineers listening, but hanging out with a bunch of engineers. Oof.
I mean, we're talking stand-up down right now, but kind of with the community and the job, but it's also glorious, like the craziness of it. And when it hits and the talent that you see sometimes. And even like, I really enjoyed, one of the reasons I used to go out a lot and watch stand-up, especially kind of in Austin, was there was auteur voices and crazy people. And you'd be like, you could really do something,
Yeah.
like I saw Nick Swartzen when he first moved to LA, and I'd already heard about him from Minnesota. I think it was Minnesota.
Yeah.
A buddy of mine was saying he had worked with him there and that this guy was really, going to be a talent. And I've always just really enjoyed that. Like they don't know shit, but you can see it, that you can see what they're going to run into, the jungle they're entering.
Yeah.
And they'll probably do fine. But just Austin, I just got to the point where I'm like, it's overrun by, it became repetitive and they started copying each other, and the scene changed. And so, I kind of got to the point where I was like, I don't think I can hang out with this anymore.
That's a bummer, because it is fun. Like you said, like you will undoubtedly, when you find a little pocket, have the most interesting conversations, be baffled that people that know so much about such a variety of topics, whether it's history or culture, economics, just general minutia, are so broke. And then you go hang out with people that do really well, and you're like, they don't really have a lot to talk about with that kind of, I don't know what you'd call it, just the whimsy to it, or that additional flair that makes it silly and funny, and just like, oh, I don't know what this is worth. But, and I think it's because you have a lot of free time to sit around and read or watch documentaries, or kind of put stuff in your mind beyond like, okay, I got to pay these bills or email this client, or who knows. But I'm always baffled by that. Like hanging out with comedians, you would think you'd be around the most degenerate, like, oh, I'm trying to make bail money. But instead, it's a lot of times it's just like enlightened, really philosophically interesting conversations.
Yeah, it's got an intellectual core to it. Everybody's trying to figure it out. You never stop learning. And stand up. The venues change, the culture changes, the world of stand up changes around you. Like suddenly the way you deliver is passe. Like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
And so you have to pay attention if you're really going to stay in it, about what changes and how do you adapt to it. And I see so many guys, like once the pandemic started to open up again, I saw all these dudes that I knew from back in the day starting to re-up their careers. And then I watched some of their stuff. I'm like, you're doing the same exact stuff. Not always the same content, but the same everything.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I mean,
to yank you out of it, go, hey.
I mean, we started this off talking about it's been 15 years. I think both of us well aware that means I am 15 years older. And so in any scene I am in, I'm 15 years older than when I was cool, than when I was like, had that youthful kind of like, my fingers kind of on the pulse. I'm not that far removed from the epicenter of culture, which is like high school and potentially college and just youth in general, of where people are sharing the funniest bits of slang or types of, saying just language, the body language. And then you see an older person come up with from when I started, it was someone would have a cell phone on their hip and you're like, this guy. And I'm sure that there's a version of that guy now, which is like, you're so out of touch. And to a certain degree, you see it with wealthy comedians because they're isolated. They're away from comedy. That they get to
bad. Yeah,
it does. They're just like maybe they have their kids and they can listen to how their kids talk, but otherwise, showing up the back door, saying hi, and not wanting to get bothered by the comics as you walk through, step on stage, the crowd goes crazy. But that's real isolated. You didn't interact with humanity.
Yeah, you didn't earn
at
that.
all.
Yeah,
No,
you're just walking up there with love. That's not earned love.
No, and it's just temporary. It's such a bad currency to deal in because people at home would watch it and be like, ugh, what? Did you just say getting jiggy with it? What world is this person living in?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things about being a hardcore writer. And when I was in late night, you have to stay up with the culture in order to keep the jokes current with what's going on. And so it forces you into that idiom of always paying attention and never just resting on what you've got, because that you can't sell what you've got. You've got to write new stuff all the time. And so I think the writer approach will force you to pay more attention. I've always been kind of an ethnographer of it anyway, because I'm an academic. So
what does that mean? Ethnographer?
Ethnographer is somebody who goes deeply into a culture to learn it at the level that the people who live there live it.
Oh, okay.
And so you get a really depth knowledge. It's an anthropological term where you go and live inside the community for years sometimes.
Yeah.
And then you really understand the sort of phenomenological experience of what it's like to do that, instead of watch it a couple of days and then go, I understand these people.
Well, to get into maybe the rhetoric of it there, what are your views on that compared to me? That's a very valuable understanding, learning culture, being a part of it. However, if you were to, like you say, go for a day or two and maybe take something away, certainly there could be like some level of appropriation. Hey, you just went in there, you didn't do anything, and now you're cruising around with that tattoo or that type of headwear or whatever it is, but by being there for 2 years, was it really that different? Did they have to accept you? What makes that transition from appropriation to understanding, compassion, integration, etc.?
Yeah, well, I used to tell people all the time that anthropology has this ethos of understanding other cultures and the value of other people and all that. But like the British anthropologists, what they really did when they went out and documented the world was teach the military how to go in and destroy that culture.
Yeah.
So they were finding, the insider codes of, oh, hey, turns out if you kill, this guy, the whole tribe falls apart. That's useful. So the appropriation is always part of it, no matter what you're doing. Everybody looks down on appropriation. I'm like, that's what cultures do. Cultures poach from each other. When you find something cool that somebody's doing, you're like, I'm going to try to do that too. And you hopefully will have a variation of it, but that's the nature of humans. We constantly mimic and learn and appropriate.
Yeah.
And then it gets into capitalism, and everybody, like the thing this week about some designers sewed boxer underwear into the pants so that they were showing on regular pants. And hip hop culture got upset because they've done the low riding pants forever. And like, you can't take that from us.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out you can.
Oh, absolutely. I remember this brief period where pants that had like this little loop on the side of the leg were popular because you could hang a hammer through it, like carpenter's pants.
Sure.
And I wonder if blue collar, painters and stuff are like, hey, what are you doing? But anything you see like that, someone is going to try to monetize it, going to try to make it cool. And I guess with comedy, you can't really do that. It gets called out. It's its own little self-sustaining orbit where because there's no central look to it. There's no central thing and yet it's the most accepting. Oh, everyone's a comedian. You can go to like anyone's Twitter biography, comedian. Like, what? Just, that might be that they have one YouTube video or something.
Yeah. I'm like, use some adjectives in there. Unpaid comedian, unfunny comedian. Like
Yeah.
add the adjectives. I don't think you've earned the full noun.
Yeah.
So, okay, you got out to LA, and when I look at your stuff, I'm like, yeah, you have this sort of science stuff mixed into it. You've got sort of science fiction. You've got like intellectualism. You got a there's a certain Huntsbergerian voice to it. Talk
Thanks.
about that.
Thanks. I think setting out, that's kind of something you at least want to find. Everyone has that, but how does it not get stuffed down by, well, everyone's saying this. I guess I got to start saying, whatever it is, or I can't do my thing because it's just, I remember one time in Austin going on stage, I brought my roommate, and this woman laughed so hard at everyone. And so everyone got to leave stage feeling like, well, at least that lady liked me. And I went up and did this joke about like being the god of ants and sort of stepping on a puddle and flooding some of them away and feeling so bad. And the woman just never came back. She stopped laughing, and she never laughed at all from the rest of my set. But these three other people right in front who hadn't laughed all night were kind of chuckling. I mean, and not laughing hard, just kind of chuckling. So I didn't do that joke again for a while, but I kept thinking back to that of like, there's something there. There's something about how those three other people were a little bit more engaged. And honestly, there's a meme that gets shared every now and again from Futurama that's like, oh, your boos mean nothing to me because I've seen what makes you cheer. And that's so valuable to be like, yeah, I don't know that lady was who I was going after. And a friend of mine at the club in Austin, we used to look at my comics and be like, oh, you're always the alien. Like, if you look at the drawing, that's you. And a friend of mine would say that if we're in mixed company and someone says, what's your comedy like? He would say, oh, it's like The Far Side, but jokes. And that was a big influence on it. I love The Far Side. And I think what I love the most about it was that like, it's not autobiographical. You don't really know who Gary Larson is other than what he's put on the page. And so he could be anyone. And I just love that. There's no gesture he can make. There's no mannerism. It is just the work in front of you that you see. You either like it or you don't. Comedy gives you so many ways to cheat that. You can adopt cool slang or language or the way you dress or something. And I don't know. I think I was always trying to navigate that in some way, but I don't know how I would describe it other than, like you said, like kind of spacey. I don't know. I like some of those themes, I guess.
Yeah, I think I remember the first time you resurfaced for me was when you were doing stuff with Tig. And I've known, I don't know her well, but I've known Tig for a long time from Hollywood and stuff, and always really admired her comedy and that sort of in the momentness that she has of just doing crowd work for an entire show. And I'm like, oh my God, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So when you jumped in there, and I'm like, oh, that's a good mix. I could see that. I could see these two being able to do comedy with each other.
Yeah, we're both pretty low key and kind of, I guess, a dry sense of humor. I don't know what it was. We just kind of hit it off, and she was living in a place with our friend Chris Fairbanks for years in Venice. And they had another friend of ours, Chell, from Minnesota, moving out there. And I didn't want to. So all the time I was like doing the living in my car sort of stuff. And I never really lived in my car. I just didn't have a place. I stayed in hotels and at friends' houses from time to time, and very rarely in my car. But she would call and be like, hey, we have this place open. And no, I'm out here. I'm on the road. And then everything started closing down. And she's like, last chance. We had someone sublet it for the summer. And so it'll be available at the end of the summer. And I mean, everything was just closing down. And I was like, maybe I should do that. And I had an agent at the time. It's like, you have to get out here. And I had always kind of heard like, you need to be invited. Don't just show up to LA. And so I felt like that was, I guess, as good of an invitation.
That was two forces. That was the universe shutting down your world out here.
Yeah.
A little light over here being turned on, saying, hey,
Yeah. So she's just been so great. She like paid what was the equivalent of like my deposit to help me get in there and kind of get on my feet a little bit, and would always just look out for me, have me do her Largo gigs and stuff like that. So I just, like you were talking, like the people that get started and they have nothing, or they think the club thing. I had a lot of things I feel that were extremely lucky and just really fortunate that like, oh, I mean, who gets that to move to LA and like have someone that she wasn't a big deal at the time, but she was established. She was, like you said, you were familiar with her. So she was, someone that was at least respected. And I certainly was one of those people. So
well, I think it's true that, some of that is just like the cosmos giving you opportunities here and there, but you also have a nice personality, approach, a friendliness, a help outableness that I would, there are a lot of people I would approach and be like, what are you planning on doing? Because you got this and this, and if I can help, I'll help. Mm-hmm. And you were always it was always seemed like, yeah, that'd be easy to offer to you. And like, something like that. And I could see people wanting to help you out. You don't look like somebody that's going to come around and turn back around and bite them in the ass somehow by fucking things up that they help you with.
Oh, thanks. I feel very lucky. And sometimes when things are maybe not lining up, you ask yourself the opposite of that. You're like, am I a bad person and I'm not aware of it? Like, are things not, there's all this rejection because like I emanate some thing. And then, but you look back and you're like, that can't be, because I did have so many people doing what you just said of like wanting to extend a kindness to me. There was a guy, and he might have been a contact through you. He was at the Velveeta room one night and just was like, I have cameras. I'd like to manage you. I book country music acts. I can get you in Europe. I was like, what? And he came and just shot this video, and then nothing came of it. He just shot this Velveeta room scene. So somewhere that exists. 2 cameras, him running around sweating, so hot. And it was, it was a fun night, but then like nothing came of it. And so I really appreciated the gesture, but time would go by and I'd be like, hey, anything coming of that? And, yeah, I just haven't had time to edit it. So then you develop this weariness of, so when things were going a little better and the business minded thing you're talking about, I definitely can smell that a mile off now. I didn't recognize it at first, but people just show up out of the blue. Can I take you out for coffee? You're busy. And like, I guess I could make time out of my day to drive through LA traffic and meet with a stranger and have a cup of coffee. And almost all of those people are so successful now. And many of them might not even return an email. And I just realized like they had that shark, like kind of, this person's doing something. I need to just kind of get around that and figure it out. And so it's been nice to have this little slowdown period to kind of be like, if things pick back up to that level, I'm well aware of who to look out for.
Yeah. And there's a guy here who's started in as a producer, and he took some comedy classes from me, which I still kind of do just for fun more than anything else, I think. And he wasn't a good comic, but he wanted to get into it. So he set himself up as a producer, and he's done a bunch of stuff here now. And he got involved with some LA agencies to book guys. And then you end up, they end up offering you things. And there's a producer that he has an idea for, with doing something here in Austin. And he talked to me about it. And I'm like, well, let me meet the guy. Mm-hmm. He's like, well, he's got credits. And I looked on his IMDb. I'm like, yeah, he's got credits, like C-level credits, and that's a little scary. Like, you guys can only get up to the C level. It's a little, they've done stuff and he may be fine. And he turned out to be fine, but he has no instincts. He has no instincts whatsoever for Hollywood, offers.
Yeah. It's, I've been watching a lot of, like drug kingpin documentaries, the Narco series and stuff like that. And the way, to some level, every entrepreneur, every independent venture is some level of that. You are your own business. And then so you look at it through that lens that's so gross. Everyone's just kind of using the next person as a stepping stone to try to be the kingpin. And then you look at someone that like Louis C.K. got to the top, and then when what's revealed the steps to get there, you're like, oh, so gross. Not comprised of the finest ethics. And then, we like when we think someone has gotten there just on their merits or like wanting to be helped out. And that was always important to me. So to hear someone say like, you just look like someone I'd want to help out. I would feel so gross. And I think a lot of the Austin scene would have like, if you felt like you're hustling, if you felt like, take me on the road with you, I can open and I'll sell your merch or whatever. I just couldn't imagine doing that. But when people ask me those sorts of things, I don't think of it initially as it's gross. I don't think of them as being a drug kingpin. I think of like they only ever want to be that. And it's hard to make that adjustment. Like, no, this is step one for them. Then when they get the chance to murder you and take over the cartel, they will.
Yeah. I never begrudge people ambition or trying to get into something or pitching or wanting. That's fine. Like I get that world, partly because I come from persuasion and rhetoric, which is all about pitching and trying to get something in the world through words. So it's all fine. But the second stage is always, where's the meat on the bone? I'm like, show me what you can do. Because then I know where to maybe recommend you or to say, hey, you're not ready. Go back. If this is as good as you'll ever do, you'll never make it.
Yeah.
But if you can learn more, great, come back again. But I never let people scoot past that second part. Like if you can't do it, I'm not going to help you. But if you can do it, I'll do whatever I can, which isn't huge, but I know people that might be able to hire a new writer or maybe a weird character actor for commercials or whatever it is. And so I'm like, I know the world enough to show you where to go and maybe open two doors,
I think one of the things and I would see some of my friends dealing with this or thinking they embodied this, which is someone who's like a virtuoso on the guitar. Maybe they don't have the best work ethic. We all want to help that person. We all go, you're really, really good. And it's like a human compulsion to help someone like that.
Yeah.
When they balk too many times or, kind of refute it, then you're like, well, that only goes so far. They have to meet it with that work ethic. But there are people that are far from virtuosos. In fact, 95%, 99% are just kind of people. I booked a show and the amount of people that would send me clips of their stand-up and I would watch and be like, I can't even imagine them making their friends laugh. They learn the tricks of stand-up. They can stand on stage and hold the mic and look around and gesture. But as far as, like you said, the meat on the bones, it was woefully, it was terrible. And I'd be like, this is such a bummer, because somewhere there's someone who quit stand-up and was really good.
Yeah. I remember the moment I decided to move to LA. I was at the finals of the Aspen Comedy Festival, and they had it at the Hollywood Improv. And 20 guys went up, and some of them are still in the business. Flip Schultz was there. Tom, what was his name? Some of them are really still, they haven't flared way up, but they've gotten a steady career in the business. And I was watching it all, and I watched 20 guys go up, and they were all great on stage. And like they had two jokes, in between them, really. And I'm like, you guys need writers. So I know, I don't know what I'll get into when I get out here, but I know I can supply that piece of the pipeline.
Yeah.
And that was my always thing, is like, I knew I wasn't a great stand-up on stage. That's not really my thing. I can't act, but I can put words out there that are going to work in people's mouths.
Yeah.
And when you can at least focus on that, like, here is the meat that I can put on the bone, and you just offer that and drop all the other stuff, then people respect that. And they're like, okay, I can help you with that. Because I got all my jobs through stand-ups who were on staff already somewhere, who knew I was a writer.
Yeah. I love those stories. And I can't think of like an exact example, but this just seems like a thing to me that I've seen, where the forming of a band, you're seeing the origin story and someone's electric on stage, but then the person who inevitably kind of steers the band shows up and goes, and those lyrics are atrocious. You got to stop singing them, but I can help you. And knowing what your value is, what your talent is, and a place to put it, because some people just sit there and maybe never see a song of theirs that they wrote ever be performed or sung by anyone. And then, it takes a little bit to say, hey, I know I'm not a singer. I know I'm not like a lead guitar person, but I can write you some really great stuff. I love when people are able to like put that in action, to find that, vessel or whatever it would be.
Yeah. That's when it gets really, when you see the power of like a Hollywood model of committee creativity in the best possible way, of super talented people at every juncture that's adding to this project. And suddenly you're like, yeah, I see why this is crazy good.
Yeah.
And stand-up is a horrible training ground for that, because you have way too much power. You're the producer, director, everything, talent, writer. And so stand-ups, if they do it for a while, get poor training to be able to actually come in and work with anybody else. And it's a problem, because I've seen a lot of people
man.
flame out trying to make that transition to Hollywood.
Yeah. Oh, that's been a huge thing, like existentially for me, in that exactly what you're saying. So much of comedy was, whatever the metaphor would be, waiting at the castle door or under the table for scraps to come off. There is only one or two, and there's 50, things that could benefit from this, door opening or scrap coming off the table. And you hear comedians, the way they would talk is always, I got Conan, I got a late night set, I got a festival, I got a half hour. The scrap came off and it went in my mouth, I got it. And you rarely heard them say, I made, I did, I built. And people that write shows, oh, we made this show, we made, not we got or I got. And I really fundamentally had to like switch. And so I've made these projects over the last like decade that were we. And a lot of friends and volunteers and artists and all the things I love, they're doing it from a good place and for a reason that they at least ostensibly can get behind. And that makes me feel so much better. It feels adjacent to comedy. It doesn't feel the same because it's not on Netflix. It's not in the places where like you play by the rules and you get this and you get this, and then this thing comes in, you get this, you get this. But I really prefer it so much more because I don't know, there's something so much more rewarding. Like we're a team and we made something, just feels way better.
So is that your business approach, your career approach right now? Talk about what you're doing, because you've got this new hour coming out and you've got 3 stand-up hours on your site for Spotify. So are you just like doing trickle in from a lot of different things as a career business structure? Or are you trying to put stuff together, maybe sell a rocket ship into the, mother space?
Well, I don't think I wasted my time here as far as like, oh, I'm not going to move away and be like, I didn't try. I went on auditions kind of against my, I was like, I'm not going to go to acting class. I'm not going to pay any money because I don't want to invest in that. I want to be a comedian. I think there's value in it. I think it's an art form that I fit pretty well. And acting I like, but it's just one of those things like, I also like, shooting hoops, playing basketball. I'm not going to like pay a bunch of money and a trainer, and I just don't see a future there for me. And so I did a couple TV sets, and when you do that, you kind of want more because you're getting stuff, and you have these patches on your Letterman jacket or your Boy Scout thing or vest or Girl Scout sash. You've got just these patches that say like, when you go work a club, oh, they're on the poster. He's gotten these things. He did a Craig Ferguson set. You can trust this guy. Come into our club, come into our venue. Now it's like that old model. And I wrote scripts and, I did what I thought I want. And I loved it. I really liked, I put together animated shows and draw the characters and put together like little animatics and really try to pitch these shows of, you need so much stuff. You need showrunners, or you need someone with a little bit of juice. And Tig and I had pitched one once, and we had a pretty famous person come in and sit with us in the meeting. And the executive, I remember afterwards, she did not like us so much so that Tig and I in the elevator, she goes, how would you describe that lady? And I go, it's not like she was dead inside. It was like she'd never lived, or there's something to that effect. And this stranger in the elevator started cracking up. Like Tig and I were like, oh, it didn't even occur to us how terrible that must have sounded. So anyway, just a lot of those kind of routes.
You mean like a civilian overhearing comics actually, describe things the way they would see them and feel them?
Yeah, but not even, it's not like we were trying to write a roast joke. I was genuinely trying to earnestly describe this woman. And it didn't even seem like a joke to Tig and I. We were like, yeah, that seems, this lady was like,
right.
Yeah, it was beyond anything I've seen on TV of like, oh, that pitch process is rough. I mean, she was just so
I remember standing behind a woman in a Sprouts here in Austin, and she was writing a check and just had all this bad affectation about her. I'm like, what does she remind me of? Like, I feel like I can see all of her past dead poodles still around her. Like they've come around. That's all she's got in life is.
Yeah. But if like, for me, that's hilarious. Someone that was at the grocery store would be like, oh, it's so perfect. It wouldn't even register as funny because it would be so accurate. I'm like, yes, I was getting that poodle vibe. And so just a million of those things. And then looking back through a different lens of like, I didn't really love TV. I kept getting bothered on Last Comic Standing to go be a part of it, and I hated it. The producer kept coming and finding me like, David, you gotta go get in the mix. And I would just be like out hanging out with the grips or out by like the porta potties.
It's very uncomfortable. I don't
I
like that.
hated it.
Yeah.
And then nothing about it felt artistic. I mean, a reality show plus a competition show. There's nothing about art that fits in either of those categories to me. And so like it was trying to kind of like really figure out what do I want to do and what can I do? You're just not given opportunities. A lot of it requires like funding and all this stuff. And then I got this to host this television show. I got it. I didn't make it. I just auditioned and I had a bunch of other crap going on. So I wasn't even able to put like all my energy into it. And that's like the best way to pursue anything. Because then it seems like, oh, he doesn't even seem that interested. We want him. So I got this gig and like, I got a little bit of that feeling that like, oh, you did it. Like it's worked out. It was on Sci-Fi Channel. We did 5 episodes. It was called Reactor. And it was like a clip show on everything going on it would be so popular right now if it had gone on. It was like, came out in the summer, opposite the Daily Show, July 11:30, who's watching comedy on Sci-Fi. But it was like slowly building this little audience. And it would have been like Game of Thrones stuff, we're off season there. So it would have been making fun of all of the stuff.
Right.
And it just didn't happen. And I'm happy about that because I really didn't want to be a clip show guy. And so kind of coming back to like, what did I want to do and what can I do? And because of the podcast Tiggin I did, I just kind of randomly said on it one time, like, if you're an animator, get in touch. I have a project. And all these people just reached out and said like, oh, help. It's been like hours of free entertainment. I'd be happy to help. I just built this little kind of production team where I have this little group where we make stuff and on no budget, but I just, for the time being, that's really what I want to do. I want to make as much stuff as I can until I'm kind of forced out of it, either financially or some other, means. But it's just putting together my website and looking back, I'm like, I've made a lot of stuff and I want that to be what it is, as opposed to always pursuing to get something. I want to just make stuff, even if it takes me a decade. I mean, this most recent thing took me like 6, almost 7 years to make. So it's not like
that sounds, yeah. When you tell people that, you're like, what, did you paint the Sistine Chapel? What the fuck did you?
No, I mean, it's part of it, as you're like doing the road and like this material, it doesn't leap out to, hey, book me at this club, or it's not like it's pulling in the biggest audience. I mean, every time's like, I would just be like, what am I even doing? This doesn't feel like comedy. It feels like no one likes it. What am I doing? But then like, just like that lady and the 3 people, there'd be someone that was like, oh my God, I love that joke. And I'd be like, okay, there's something here. And so just slowly cobbling it together. And then I did like the Edinburgh Fringe Festival and worked on it slowly there. And then I kind of had that together. I started scrambling the idea to, I got to get this location. I got to get this shot. And then I got to get this thing. And just with limited, budgets along the way. And I scraped together this much money. Now I can put it into hiring a drone guy. And then we go get those shots. And so it was just not the Sistine Chapel, just lengthy because.
Which project is this?
This is Big Nothingness. This is the one that comes out next week.
Is it stand-up then? Or is it just
it's like
amalgamation?
Yeah, it's a straight stand-up set. So the album is an hour. It just sounds like regular stand-up. But I'm real fascinated with like, people have toyed with changing the visuals of stand-up stuff. I don't know. I got a little, I feel like most stand-up specials I was watching, I just had them on in the background. I was just listening. And then you check in like, oh, yep, still a person just smiling and gesturing.
Yeah, it's under-visualized for sure.
Absolutely. And so I just like the idea of, if you're going to take away the live audience and that feel that you can't replicate, being in a live crowd is something, if people haven't done it, they just can't comprehend what it feels like. So to take that away and try to turn it into this 2D thing, I just don't think you can, if you're going to make it a visual thing, like have some visuals. And so people have done it where they like break away to a documentary or something. And
yeah, it's odd. I had a friend here who's a longtime comic strip guy. He's got a comic strip that he created called Over the Hedge, and DreamWorks turned it into a big movie. And I've had him on the podcast a couple of times and we talk about it, but he bought the rights to the Dilbert cartoons and a couple of the really big ones and the New Yorker cartoons way back at the beginning of cell phones. And they had a company that was taking those jokes and animating them. making 3-panel animations, or I
Uh-huh.
take the 3 panels and then turn them into voice the characters, do it moving to animation to try to sell short content to ringtones and things like that. And there was something about it that did not work. They had all this great source material, and when it was flat and on the page and you had to put it together in your head, it
Yeah.
worked. But
Yeah.
like the New Yorker cartoons were insufferable when they were performed.
I had that happen. I had this watercolor 24 single panel comic strip I made, and I've never posted it anywhere. It's this story that I really like. I still think could be a show. I took it to this animation studio. They're like, we love it. Let's make it. But we're not going to give you any money. We'll just give you full creative control. I'm like, I can live with that. We're going to make like 30 minutes and try to pitch it as a pilot. And then we make like an animatic. And I was genuinely getting notes of like, it's missing the nuance it had before. And I was like, it was like 5 words on a page that we talk about nuance, but it really was. There was some translation that just too many words or the characters moving took something from it. You could imagine it so much more. And the first project I did that was kind of like Big Nothingness, that all those animators reached out to me for, I performed it in Boise in front of a movie theater screen. So like enormous, all these cool animations playing behind me. It was so fun. When I shot it, we just had like a little screen playing next to me. I didn't have the budget for this giant screen. So visually, it was kind of a failure in that like the crowd had to go back and forth. They had to kind of ping pong with you.
The psychological bounce. There's something disorienting about it.
Totally. If you're standing in front of it, I mean, I looked like a matchstick in front of a television. And so it was so cool to them. They could remind themselves, oh yeah, that guy's just standing there doing nothing. But then there's this happening and his voice is doing it. But when they had to ping pong, it took something away. And so this time I think I learned a little bit more how to like balance that. So the visuals enter very subtly. You can stay in it. So I'm hoping that it's not the New Yorker's cartoon, but you never know.
No, you don't. And it's very tricky, but like when you figure it out, you figure it out. Like there's something about stand-up that doesn't translate. People love stand-up. They love stand-up so much that they'll watch it on TV when it's awful. And like you said, they'll reduce it down to just the listening to it in the background. So there's no reason, because you'll get bored watching this guy. And I watched Andy Kindler's old 2011. I
Wish I Was Bitter.
Yeah, I Wish I Was Bitter. I watched it the other night, and I loved it. But I know Andy, and I've seen him perform so many times live.
Yeah.
That I don't know if I was importing that into it, but I thought it was like pretty intimate. They kept it in the club. You could see a lot of the audience. And I'm like, that's a better way of filming stand-up.
Yeah, I opened for a friend of mine at what I thought was a giant venue, 500 plus, but with a mezzanine. So it felt right on top of you. And if you're looking for visuals to be like, look at how big this is, and they shot it like it took place in a 50-seat black box theater. And the reasoning was what you're saying. They want to make it feel intimate. And I was like, yeah, I get that. I don't know. There's just such a balance. There's such a mix there.
There is. And there's no program. Nobody's figured it out yet.
Yeah.
There's been a couple of stand-up specials that were shot. I'm like, there's something about this one that's right.
Yeah.
But it's not right all the way through. And it's like with movies, you can shoot it from a perspective, but you've got to constantly be changing that perspective too, because the audience is going to get used to it. It's going to lose its flavor, and you can't just keep chewing that same bubble gum.
Right.
And so that stand-up, like even when Dr. Katz did the little shaky animations of guys, on the couch, that kind of worked, but then it got really boring really quick to me. I'm like, I don't need to see the guy on the couch.
It's funny you say that, because I would just have it on in the background, just like stand-up. I just like the conversations. And if anything, that it almost felt like it was epileptic or something, like it would jar me to have a seizure. I was just like, this shakiness is bugging me, but the sounds were so soothing. So it didn't fit that visuals are jarring and the sounds are just so calm and funny. And
well, I'm really curious to see your product.
Oh, thanks. I'll send you a link. And so far the response has been positive, and get a little gun shy in that, the last one, because when I did it just the stand-up, the jokes were fine, and I was proud of them. When I did it with the kind of live crowd and the ping pong, and there's crazy shit in that one, like the background's nuts, I'm wearing this weird suit. So there's just a lot to take in, and the laughs aren't the best. And so some of the reviews were like, this isn't the funniest thing you'll ever see. And I was like, damn it. So I made sure in this one that like the comedy stayed at the forefront, which, you know, you learn each time. To me, it's like you and painting, the art or pursuit of it had to be at least in the conversation, as opposed to like, that worked, let's do it again. It was like,
Yeah,
I'm
it
much
sucks.
more
Like, you know, like live stand-up, you get to fail, you know, you get to fail partially, you get to fail a third, whatever, and you can feel that, excise it, cut out the cancer and go back and do it again.
yeah,
And by the time you finish live stand-up, you know, if you can get in this approximate audience and the approximate, you know, good energy, you know how it's going to go.
yeah,
There's no doubt how it's going to go.
yeah.
But with things like film and animation and comment, all that, you have to lock it down.
Yeah.
And the if it's 70% of failure still in there, you can feel it. And you're like, I could fix that if, but you just can't do that development cycle like that anymore.
No, you're right. It's I mean, that's why people love stand-up, but then there's also that side of like, that was work. Because your favorite comedian, if you're in the green room with them, no audience member knows this, but they could be having a great set and be like, I hate this crowd. Because the few times I've ventured out of like, I've got this new bit I'm trying and I hope they go with me, and they don't. You're like,
Yeah.
all right, you heathens. And you come back and just give them like the fastball. Like, I know this one works, but this isn't fun for me because I've done it 1,000 times.
Yeah. And I got to the point in doing stand-up where I wouldn't do material anymore. I would do the TIG thing of I'm just going to talk to you people. It's the only thing that has any potential of keeping me psychologically here.
Yeah.
You know, and I would maybe bring up a few ideas that I'd thought of that I purposely didn't write out. Because I'm like, oh, here's funny. Like the last time I went up at the Velveeta, the first 30 minutes I talked about, did you ever notice that Winnie the Pooh doesn't have fingers? Like,
No, I guess not.
he has a thumb,
It's just got the little mitts.
but the rest is a mitt. What happened to Winnie the Pooh's fingers? That's what I want to talk to y'all about. And so I forced the audience to give me their theories. And that gives you enough for your brain to go, oh, I hadn't really thought of maybe, you know, his mom took thalidomide, honey, you know?
Yeah.
And so there's enough there that you can stay psychologically involved in it as a writer. But to me, like once it's written, it's like I'd rather sell it to somebody and move on.
Yeah, I like the closing the book, turning the page and like, that's written, that's done. I don't want to, I'm sure I could keep tweaking it or finding something or some little, oh yeah, I could add this to this character. This person could have this, or there's something about finding that sweet spot of it's not ready yet. It's still a little undercooked, but then so often when something's overcooked, it's worse.
Well, I think I've gone in a lot of direction like you have. You've gone into animation and giving it visuality and getting into sort of team, you know, approaches of that stuff. What I do is I write now what I would call stand-up infused theme shows.
Mhm.
So I'll get interested in something odd and I'll try to see if I can write it 75 minutes on that.
Yeah.
And like I start on Africa because I have a bit that I actually wrote in the Velveeta room way back when about what's her name? The young black girl is not young anymore, who everybody loved here. What's her name? Anyway, she got up and said her parents were from Nairobi or something. And I was watching all the comics lusting after her as she was on stage. And I thought, oh yeah, like she was from Kenya. I'm like, that'd be exhausting stalking a Kenyan woman. And that became my opening joke. Like I walk up and I go, yeah, I'm a little tired. I've been stalking a Kenyan woman.
How's it go? Because you're a
it-
white dude with a shaved head. I mean, I could see that people being like, well, where's this going, fella?
Yeah, and a third of them get it. They're like, I'm like, hey, they're runners, like they're long distance runners. Did you watch the Olympics? That would be exhausting to try to chase down. That's my first joke, people. And so, but it became this whole bit now where I got really interested in Africa because it's one of these topics that you kind of know a little about, but it's massive in its detail.
Yeah.
Like the other one is the Titanic. I had written a book, a persuasion book, and one of the titles I was messing around with was Invincible Talk.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you learn how to talk so well? Like, how do you do persuasion so well that you never lose? And I thought about the word invincible, and I'm like, that's a big claim. Like, you got to be careful. Where's that backfired on people? And I'm like, Titanic.
Yeah.
And so you
Yeah.
start doing research, and I went through all the roster of the Titanic for the names. Like there were 4 Adolfs that died on the Titanic because it was 1912. It was before Adolf has gone from the, naming options.
Yeah.
4 dead Adolfs.
My life partner, my life associate, she for a while, she hasn't done it in a few years, but would write nonfiction kids books. So she'd get commissioned and like, here are the titles we want you to, breeds of dogs, but that would be like one of them, the Titanic. And she'd come in and be like, you're not gonna believe this, and always have those great little tidbits that
There's so much.
There's so much in if you get into the minutia of really anything that you think has either been covered and or is not interesting, couldn't be further from the truth.
No, there's so much in there. And as a stand-up, going through and finding suddenly this thing just jumps up and you're like, what?
Yeah.
Like Hitler had a train. I also did this with Hitler. Do you know Hitler had a train?
No. Well, I know of the trains, but like I didn't know he had his own
a
train set.
He had a super train that he had designed. It was heavily armored. He hated to fly. So he made him build new tracks around the country. And he mostly traveled by train. And this is the greatest trivia question ever. Nobody ever knows it. What was the name of Hitler's train? It's unguessable.
Unguessable. Okay. Yeah, I would guess something like Eva or Blitzkrieg or something. I don't know.
Unguessable. The name of his train was America.
Why?
This was before America entered the war, and he admired America.
Wow.
He really liked American pop culture, and he liked the way that we dealt with our native population. And so he named his train America. Awesome.
Yeah. I wonder how many people on the planet know that. You guys should get together and have like a little convention.
Well, there's a documentary about his train. So you can
okay. Yeah, those people know it now. Man, I love stuff like that.
But I like that. Like when you take something like it's been your life work, like stand up, and just the uranium that you learn there, and that's a super set of skills, and it will work in the environment if you can get into that environment. But you can't make a living in that environment anymore because it's gone away. How do you adjust it and see if you can take it to some other amalgamation, some jazz fusion?
My hope is that, like Miles Davis was always just pressing it. He's just almost like he recognized like jazz like we know it is just not going to be around. So I'm going to press it and just pushing it a little forward. And I think that's always happened where like when there's this flood, when there's this influx, when it's the cool thing, something will pop out of it. And the biggest question, I guess, would be like, is it an art form? And what do you say? What do you want to say? What are you trying to say? What do you have to say? It's so disappointing that people that get these giant platforms, stadiums, arenas, talk about like their kids, talk about themselves. You could be telling us something so interesting. You could be digging it and using your skills as a funny person. You can make most things enjoyable for us. I mean, that would be just such a different world to live in where it was a big crowd and we're leaving there being like, I didn't know any of that shit, or I never thought about that stuff. Or wow, I got to really spend some time. To me, that's my favorite. If I read a book or something that gives me something new to think about or process, I don't give a shit about your kids. No offense, but like, I've just heard so many of the jokes. They're fun in the moment, but that'd be so weird if that changed, if that's what was birthed out of it.
Well, it's this weird double gate, right? On one leg, you're walking with that, like some kind of purpose, some, heft to what you're doing, some gravitas, some value, information, whatever it is. And that's kind of my world when I do rhetoric and I try to teach people how to do politics in this crazy age. And then on the other side, it's just figuring how to charm people, how to delight them enough to the point they'll pay you money. That's all really comedy is. It's just charming and fun enough that they'll be like, yeah, I'll pay for that emotional experience.
My sister would bring up this, maybe you know this, and I'm butchering it completely. I feel like it was a French sort of philosopher who spent his life pursuing writing, things of this nature. And he just looked down on the baser pursuits. It's like, that's nothing. And then he just went and made a bunch of money to show people, look, anyone can do that. I'm going back to my book writing. And if you were able to like wade into those waters and use those skills to just show that that's all stand-up is, or that's all that this, I'm a life coach now, or I've attained this status as a public speaker because I just tricked all you idiots. That'd be so interesting to write the book from that perspective.
Well, and again, I'm like you. I tend to, when I find something interesting, I want to turn it into a project, and I probably have. I've brought enough of them to fruition in the last few years that I feel like I've gotten somewhere. But I've probably got 75 different things that have some type of deep well to them that I could turn into something. And one is that, just like the techniques, sort of the secret techniques you learn as a stand-up to rivet attention.
Yeah.
And you don't even think about it all the time just yourself, because you're just doing it.
Yeah.
But just the movements, the way you use your voice, the way you know to go at the audience a little bit, to shift, where that you do not let their brains go away. And you can feel it if they drift even just for a second. And you're like, nope.
Yeah.
And you go get that person.
Yeah.
And those are really super micro techniques that nobody ever gets taught. But you learn as a stand-up, for sure.
Oh, yeah. That's the worst feeling, because I feel like, at least for me, you learn them on the bad side. You learn them where things are going, and you have a thought pop in your head, and it's almost like the audience could read your thought, which is, oh shit, did I just forget the next thing that comes next? You think that in your head. It's a very innocuous thought, but it's this moment of like lack of confidence or something that maybe your body just resonates, and you feel the crowd go, he doesn't know what he's doing. And then you're like, did they just feel that? And you feel the room just suck up, and you're like, no way. And then the whole set sometimes changes, even though you try to keep like, we're still having fun. Right? And the Velveeta room was the biggest place for me with that. It was like that, to me, that crowd could just feel every hair droplet of sweat on your body. They knew what was going on with you, like physiologically.
Yeah.
And then that taps into this weird subconscious thing. I don't know what it is, but it's fascinating.
I've never really seen another venue like Velveeta. I mean, it's deep, and you got the back layer that's all comics.
Yeah.
Are usually not liking what you're doing. And then you've got the people that have been barkered in, and then you got some people who want to listen to comedy.
Yeah.
And so it's this tripart audience always. And then even within that, they're fragmented drunk college students versus tourists from Germany. And you're like, what? The closest thing was, I guess, when I was in Tampa, I used to live in Florida, and working those audiences, because you get this whole audience of tourists, which is bizarre to try to do stand-up for a non-integrated intercultural audience.
Yeah.
You're like, this is weird. But you learn those skills again of bouncing around the room, of being like, okay, you're an island over here. I got you. You guys are all from somewhere in Eastern fucking Europe, and I can handle that. And you people are New York. So you kind of pick up that scat around the roomness.
Yeah. I would get that in Vegas, and I would always liken it to they didn't want to laugh because they felt like they were representing where they were from. And, so like, oh, we're from Indiana. We don't laugh at what New York people laugh at, or something like that. So they're just all in this weird standoff where, I mean, night after night, you would do like 14 shows at some of these gigs. And so I would go up and like lay in my hotel room and just be like, okay, let's try this. And I just try every tactic I could think of, because you have to do something to feel like you're not going to go insane. It's the worst feeling.
It's that almost war mentality, right? You are in a battle every time.
Yeah.
You want to keep the enemy calm, on your side. You do not want to agitate the enemy, because then you have to work really hard. So you figure out, okay, I know how not to, if I want to trigger you, I'll trigger you, but I don't want you triggering on your own.
Yeah.
And so it is that kind of sense. And I think that deep learning, that body learning, like you're talking about, that super awareness that you have as a stand-up of the whole audience. Nobody really gets that.
No. And it's not a given that even I don't feel like I really possess. I don't think I could just walk into any room and get them. I think I just made a decision of like, how hard do I want to work to get this Vegas crowd? If I'm honest, it's not a group of people I want to see regularly. So I just kind of made a conscientious decision to like, I'm just going to kind of do my thing. And if it attracts people that I could hang out with after the show, that's ideal. But I don't like that old thing of like, you got to make them all laugh no matter where you go. It's just too many assholes. It's too big of a population to feel like you got to appeal to all
I totally
of them.
agree with that. I guess what I mean is I want to keep power over the whole room. Like, stand-up is a control freaks game. It ultimately is. You don't want to be at the mercy of the audience. And so all I want to do is, like, if you don't enjoy me, that's fine. I'm now going to make sure you don't enjoy me.
Respect my power to just ruin your night.
Sense of I don't want them competing with me. I'm like, they paid to come in here. I got a bunch of stuff. I'm going to do the work for you guys. Don't fight me.
Yeah, when people pay to go into a room and then talk themselves into having a bad time, that's really something. And every comedian has felt that. It's like, what is this? What are we looking? And that's why a lot of times they love the basest of stuff, like puppets and ventriloquists and things like mind readers and things. Like, they just, and I get it. I mean, that you can just kind of tune out a little and be taken on a ride. And maybe it's the visuals that tie in. I don't know. I mean, there's just so much stuff of understanding that psychology and then encapsulating kind of all of that. Say you were someone that had a big, or say you're just anyone and you have I know so many people that want to do like the Titanic thing, or how many people do you know that are like, I got really into this Battle of Worcestershire in 1903 where all these farmers took up and they know all this stuff about this weird little battle that resulted in common people making boats, and they carried the boats, they portaged them over here, and you're like, that's so fascinating. And they're trying to turn that into either a movie or a TV series or a graphic novel or a stand-up set. So many of them will never get made. And like, how do you find that thing where you can make the things you want, deliver them in the way you want, have that association? I guess not power or control, but like an engagement. Because all of those things are just such a recipe. It's really hard to piece it all together.
Well, I think you've done the right thing about building a little community of other people to bounce it around with and work on it with, because you can't always get to the audience anymore. Obviously, during the pandemic, the audience dissolved and you couldn't get to them, and Zoom it's not the same thing. And trying to do production like this, like I have 2 or 3 shows that I want to finish, and they're live based shows, and I'm still trying to figure out how to do them without a live audience. Because I like the content. I've worked it enough where I got plenty of jokes and it's got a cool hook. But I don't want to take it out too far outside of stand-up or monologue or lecture, which is what I probably do best. You can produce it, but at this point, that's not what I don't want to get back into TV kind of committee work like you're doing, where if I was in LA, it might be different, and if I'd stayed in it hardcore, but it is fascinating to take the things you've learned, try to figure out how to make a living in this stuff, and be, not creatively crushed every day you walk into work. So,
or crush other people.
Done it, man.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it. I mean, I wish that were the case. I don't think, but I think I've at times stumbled on a decent way to pursue it. It makes me feel like I'm not insane, but I don't think I've gotten it yet, but I don't know, I feel good about this one. I'd like to do a third to kind of finish the trilogy. And I was talking to like an acquaintance a while ago, and he was, my assistant doesn't always know what they're doing, and I've only made her cry once. And I was like, man, that just sucks. Like, once is way too much. And I love that Vince Gilligan and the crew, that they just got better and better at doing it. They got so good at making Breaking Bad that they got better making Better Call Saul, and it just kept progressing. And you never hear a negative thing about that crew or the way they treat each other. That's the goal, is like, just figure out what you do and try to do it on a small level, and then just grow that. To me, that makes the most sense. So hopefully I'm on the path to doing that in some way.
We'll do a quick pitch of Big Nothing and Big Nothing or Big Nothingness.
Nothingness, Big Nothingness. It's going to be on YouTube, Vimeo, and I think Amazon on September 24th. It streams as an album starting on the 17th. So if you have Pandora or Sirius, you can just hear it there. And then it'll be available everywhere on the 24th, Spotify, etc., just in the audio form, but visually, YouTube, Vimeo, Amazon, and it's different, if nothing else. We made it from a good place. A lot of artists, a lot of people trying their best, and so hopefully people like it. I'm happy with it, and that's the best I can do.
Ultimately, isn't happiness better than pay?
I just, man,
You should just go to smile at your landlord now and say, I want to share some of the happiness that I've generated with you. And
yeah. I mean, yeah, to some degree, it's such a selfish thing to derive happiness from the things you make, because there's probably a whole conversation there. But yeah, I think a lot of unhappiness comes from like, I didn't make it, or I didn't make it the best I
right.
could.
Yeah.
Or,
You don't want to be haunted by this unborn
Yeah.
project.
oh, I never got, I never did my thing. It's out of my system. So if I get hit by a bus, I'll at least be like, oh, I finished.
Yeah. If you're in Texas, we could, sue you for not taking that to fruition, to not giving full birth.
Oh, right.
Make
Yeah.
money off your project.
Yeah. Geez. Oh boy.
Yeah. All right, cool, man. Well, I appreciate you jumping on. It's been fun catching up.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Dan. Appreciate you reaching out. Good to see you. Don't look like you've aged at all, which is frustrating, but must be the humidity down there in Texas.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's the beautiful life here in Austin, Texas. Well, cool. We'll swing back around, and good luck on it. I will definitely check it out, and I'll promote it. So good stuff, man.
Thanks.
Everybody, this has been the Rhetoric Warriors podcast. We will see you next time. Get out there and persuade some people. They always need it.